Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Principal Program Manager from the Windows Engineering team, Pete Brown.
Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Good? I saw the coffee line was good, so I'm expecting a lot of high energy in here today. Everybody get something good to drink before you came in here? How many had something alcoholic before you came in here? All right. So my name is Pete Brown. I am a program manager in the Windows team at Microsoft, and I'm going to talk to you today about some of the great things that we have coming in Windows. And we're also going to have some other folks come up, and we're going to talk about some of the new things in Azure and a bunch of other really fun stuff that I think you'll like. So again, thanks for joining us here early in the morning. The Microsoft Build Tour is all about Microsoft. It's not just about Windows. It's not just about Azure. So I want to make sure that we tell you a complete story this morning. It's a quick story, but it's going to be a complete story. So let's start a little bit with some of the momentum that we have going on in Azure. How many in here are using Azure services today? Quite a few of you, great. So more than 90% of the Fortune 500, the big companies out there, use the Microsoft Cloud and bet on the Microsoft Cloud. And in addition to that, we have a lot of really important software as a service companies that are using Azure and betting on Azure for their products. A few of my favorites in here are related to creators. You know, Adobe, Autodesk, Avid. These are all companies that have creators at the heart of their customer base. Windows 10, which is on the team that I'm on, is the most used version of Windows around the world. We have over 500 million people, 500 million devices out there with Windows 10. And we have over 300 million people using Windows 10 on average of more than 3.5 hours per day. So this is deep engagement with Windows, and this is our most successful version of Windows ever. One of the things that we do have coming up, I mentioned creators here, is the creators update that we just released, which has been super successful, and we are announcing the fall creators update. Now, we're in Australia, right? So I understand fall doesn't necessarily mean the same thing here, so I guess for you guys it'll be the spring creators update, but that's going to be coming here US time this autumn, or springtime for you all, before Santa shows up, I think. Okay? We're going to talk about a bunch of different things here today. First, I want to talk to you about how Windows is the best development box out there. We're going to talk about the successes that you all have had in the Windows Store and some of the things that we've done based upon your feedback. And then we're going to talk about the Microsoft Graph, which is a super important thing on the Windows part as well as on the Azure piece. And then we're going to have some folks talk to you about the Azure services and some of the great things that we've been doing in the portal there, as well as data, compute, artificial intelligence, which is super exciting stuff. And then we'll wrap up this morning by talking about Fluent Design, which is our new design language for Windows, as well as mixed reality. So how many of you here use Twitter? All right, good number of you all. I encourage you throughout the day here, this is the last stop on the Build Tour. We want to make it the biggest stop for the Build Tour. So as you're going throughout the day, you see something interesting, or if you see something embarrassing, feel free to tweet photos, tweet your stories, tweet anything about this event that's important to you, as well as tweet feedback from that. And that way we can make this kind of the best and last stop of the Build Tour. Use the hashtag #MSBuildTour for anything that you post on any of your services today. So let's get started here. How many of you are Windows 10 users? Okay. And how many of you target devices other than Windows devices when you're building applications? So a number of you, great. So let's talk about how Windows is the best development box out there. All right. First, I want to make it super clear that the UWP platform, Universal Windows Apps, is the API and is the platform in Windows that we are investing in for Windows desktop development. It's not just about mobile, not just about Xbox. It is also about desktop going forward. Right? So the Universal Windows platform, though, does allow you to create one set of code, one binary that runs across all the different devices that we create at Microsoft. Now, we have a number of those that we're going to show today, as well as mixed reality devices that will be able to use your UWP skills and the things that you build in UWP to target the next class of devices that are coming out. But we're more than just building Windows applications. I asked how many of you here are building for other devices. A lot of you, I imagine, are building for web as well. How many for web? Okay. So we know that web is a huge part of our development base, and so we want to make sure that we give you the best possible experience for developing for web on Windows. One of the things that you're going to hear about a bit more later today is progressive web applications. This is something that we're investing in that makes it possible for you to use your HTML, JavaScript, and CSS skills to build really cool applications that are cross-platform, run on Android, run on iOS, but also can run on Windows and light up on Windows. And we'll talk more about that this morning. Another thing that we're doing is incorporating, or we have incorporated, the Bash shell into Windows 10. So how many of you here do Linux work as part of your workflow? I see some of you are just like, don't want to raise your hand too high, right? I love using Bash. I love using Linux. I have an Ubuntu server that I use at my house for Minecraft that my son and I run together. And I use a lot of the stuff in Bash and in Windows 10 to manage that server. Well, what we released back in the anniversary update was the first version of Bash on Windows 10, right? And since then, we've added in other capabilities, like you can now launch Windows applications from Bash. So you can incorporate, as part of your workflow, you can have a Bash script that is running native Linux code, and then you can also have it launch Windows processes as part of that. So if you think about that from a developer standpoint, you can now have the best of both worlds in, say, like your build process. You can now also run services like Apache and SSH. This is a really big deal and enables some other very cool scenarios. And then we're also adding in faster networking and disk I/O, which is, of course, important. And we continue to improve it by adding more syscalls and more capabilities as part of this. And again, what we're trying to do here for you all is to make sure that in Windows, you have the best possible development environment, that you don't have to make a choice and say, I need to go to this VM or I need to go to this other box over here to be able to do my Linux work, and then I do my Windows stuff over here. Now you can do it all from your PC. But that's not all we're doing there, right? This fall, as part of the Creators Update that we're releasing, or this spring for you all again, we are adding 2 more distros to Windows 10. So we're also going to have OpenSUSE and Fedora that can all run side by side with the Ubuntu distro that's already included. So you can pick the distro that works best for you and meets the requirements that you have for the projects that you're doing. And these will all be available through the Windows Store. Now, how many C++ developers in the room here? A few of you, okay. It's usually a few kicking around still. I've done a lot in C++ over the years. It's where I started. As you can imagine, most of Microsoft is C++. So it's something that's built deeply into our DNA, and it's an audience that we want to continue to support. With the latest version of C++, we have 17 times faster loading of C++ projects. So we've improved performance of those project loading themselves. We take less memory once those projects are loaded. This is a big deal if you have these really huge projects. And if you're building cross-platform C++ applications, we've now added in support so that you can directly open CMake projects from Visual Studio without any kind of extra step or extra conversion process. Really great stuff there. If you combine Visual C++ with the work that we've done in the Windows subsystem for Linux, you can now target the Windows subsystem for Linux with a Linux application written in C++. So if you want to build a C++ Linux app, you can do it 100% on your Windows PC without having to involve any other computers at all. This is super important for folks that are working on buses or on planes or any other place where they don't want to have to carry around multiple machines or VMs or anything like that. And it really speeds up the development and the debugging cycle because you can do it all from that same environment. Now, how many .NET developers in the room? Excellent, excellent, okay. You guys didn't realize I was going to ask you to exercise all day, right? So there'll be more of that after lunch, trust me. So .NET is obviously something else that we have a long history with and something that we're continuing to support and continuing to move forward. So have no question about it, .NET is still one of our core priorities and is something that we are continuing to bring forward and continuing to enhance in the future. A while ago, we released .NET Core, which is something that a lot of folks have been using on some of the server products and as well as on other operating systems. And now we also have announced .NET Standard, where .NET Standard is a set of profiles and specifications that each of the versions of .NET will be able to subscribe to so that we can have a standardized version of .NET and you don't have to mess around with portable class libraries and things like before, but you can target specific profiles. And we have had a lot of success with this in the open source community. We've had big companies as well as individuals contributing, and some that you might not have actually thought would be contributing to projects that we work on. So, for example, Red Hat, Google, et cetera, are all contributors to these standards and to these projects. Now, one of the things that was left out of that is we didn't have support in .NET Standard for UWP. And of course, given that that is the platform, the API set that we are promoting as Windows development, the API set that we are investing in the future, we wanted to make sure that .NET Standard also had a profile that supported UWP. So we're announcing here .NET Standard 2 for UWP. If you are interested in taking a look at the specifications and stuff that we have out there, just go to microsoft.com/.net and you'll be able to have access to all of that right there. Now, how many of you are XAML developers? A few folks. All right, how many of you are Xamarin developers? A few folks as well. Cool. If you happen to do both of those, Xamarin and XAML using something like WPF or UWP, you may have noticed that there is a difference, even though they're very close, but there is a difference between the XAML implementations in both of those. So for example, Xamarin Forms, you have a stack layout. UWP, you'll have a stack panel. So what we're doing to address this is XAML Standard. And XAML Standard is something that we're developing with the community. Right? So it's not just something coming directly from Microsoft. We're developing it with the community to unify XAML across all of our different client-side products. So if you're a WPF developer or a UWP developer or a Xamarin Forms developer, you definitely want to take a look at this and help us influence the direction of XAML Standard going forward. And you can go to aka.ms/XAML Standard to see what we've got going on there. And please do contribute to that. Now, if you combine together .NET Standard with XAML Standard, you have one set of APIs, one set of skills, one set of UI technology that you can use to target all the different client applications, all the different devices that your customers have, as well as server products. So as a .NET developer, this is a great time to be working in .NET because you can target more devices and more operating systems than ever before. Now, let me give you a quick demo of something interesting here about what we're doing excuse me, with Xamarin. So let me pull over to this machine. All right. What I have here is I have a Xamarin Forms project that is targeting multiple different operating systems. I also happen to have an iPhone, which, oops, I always get that backwards. I also happen to have an actual iPhone here, okay? It's not my iPhone. I have a Windows phone in my pocket, right? But there's an iPhone on the stage here. All right. Now, what I've got here is a project that is a Xamarin project, and what I'm going to do here is show you a feature we have now called Xamarin Live Player. So if I click on Run for this project, excuse me, if I click on Run for this project, oh, you know what? I think it's still running. Oh, there we go. Demo gods. Let's try again. It's awesome when it fails and there's a camera over your shoulder when you're doing it. So let me, all right, oh, you know what? Helps if you actually run the live player first. All right, so now let me do this. Live player, nope. One more time. Here we go, all right. So it only took about 15 clicks, it's okay. This is preview stuff, and I'm also on stage, so you know how that goes. But what I have here is this application. I was able to deploy this directly from my PC in Visual Studio to an iPhone that is just connected over the network. And the way that that's working is it goes out to the cloud. It's doing some stuff with the Xamarin server and establishing a secure connection between the two of those. And so that it's able to run this application directly on here, on this iPhone, for development and testing purposes, right? I didn't need anything else to do this. I was able to do it directly from my PC. Now, if you are familiar with, say, edit and continue, which I imagine is something that is interesting to most people here, I can go into Tools, Xamarin Live Player, Live Run from Current View, and now I have the application running again on this iPhone, and I can drag over, say, like this header, okay? And so now I've got that, and it automatically updated right on the device without me having to redeploy or do any additional work. So that's pretty cool stuff there. But it's not just about XAML. I can also go, let's see, I can say, hello, Sydney, and remove that. I can change the code directly. I can also change, say, the color here to orange and move from there. And it just took a second, and you see the application updated in real time. So we have both code and we have XAML edit and continue as part of this. So very cool stuff that lets you be productive as a Xamarin developer directly from your PC. Is that cool? There we go. Thank you. All right. So that's one of the things that we're doing to make it easier to be a cross-platform developer in Windows. Now let's talk very briefly about the Windows Store and some of the things that we have going on there. We've listened to your feedback about the Windows Store, and we've added support for better awareness through increasing in promotions. We've added support for better monetization through subscriptions and Xbox convergence. And we've also improved the developer experience. So you have better automation, better reporting, stack traces, etc. We've also had, by the way, I've done the build tour now in China, in Korea, in India, and now here in Sydney. And we've translated this page for every locale. You know, we had Sheshe in China and Kamsahamnida in Korea, but I heard good on ya is appropriate language here in Australia to use for thank you. So good on you for investing in the Windows Store. But there are two applications here I'd like to call out. The first is iAuditor, which is a UWP application in the Windows Store, again, locally from Australia, that handles, it has a built-in forms designer for being able to create templates for drag and drop forms management, and is used by folks for inspections across all sorts of industries. Very successful app, very well developed. And the second one is Stan, which is a TV application, slash video application that is being used, again, across Australia, developed locally here. And that has built-in support for Cortana and other Windows 10 features. So these are two great applications developed here in Australia that are using UWP features to light up on Windows 10. There are a bunch of other applications that have been coming to the store as well. So SAP Digital Boardroom, for example, is coming to the store. And of course, if you happen to use iTunes, that is also coming to the Windows Store. And this is super important because there are devices that we have that can only install applications from the Windows Store. So having your application in the store makes it possible for those to be used. And then finally, I'd like to call out Autodesk Sketchbook as a particularly successful application in the store. They found by investing in the store and using subscriptions, they were able to greatly increase their user monetization to the point where they were able to do much more on Windows and be much more successful on Windows than any other platform and any other launch that they've had. Okay. Now, one other quick demo I'd like to show you here is this. Now, how many of you have been to the Microsoft Store down in downtown? Oh, a number of you. Great, great. So you may have seen, I'm going to lift this up. I have lots of cables attached. This is a Surface laptop, right? The Surface laptop runs Windows 10 S, which is the version of Windows which runs applications from the store, targets education. It also targets, it's a good safe machine to use for those of us who have to do tech support for our family and who would much rather everybody else use very safe machines. So let me just show you something interesting about this. We are doing, pull up here, the version of PowerPoint that I've been using here. You can see it's running. There's PowerPoint, 32-bit. If you look at where it's running from, it's C program files, Windows apps, Microsoft Office, desktop, PowerPoint. This is the Centennial UWP version. Oops, let me get out of here. The UWP version of PowerPoint running on this machine. So because it is a version of PowerPoint using the Microsoft Desktop Bridge, it is able to run on a Windows 10 device. And we'll talk more about the Desktop Bridge this afternoon. Now, the final thing I would like to talk about before we transition to Azure here is some of the stuff we're doing with the Microsoft Graph. The Microsoft Graph is a way to put the user at the center, but have all of your devices and data and everything available about that user across multiple devices. So in the past, we've been very device-centric. This is very user-centric. And this is a big part of what we're working on across all of our divisions at Microsoft. If you want to get started using this, we have some early SDKs available specifically for Project Rome. And those are available across all the devices that you use. And we'll have links to all these here at the end of the day as well. Okay? So download that SDK, and that'll get you started on some of the things that we're doing as part of the graph. Now, what I'd like to do here is very quickly go through something we have called Microsoft Timeline. Microsoft Timeline is an implementation of Microsoft Graph on Windows 10. So here I am on a Windows 10 PC, and I'm able to look through the history of all the applications and all the projects that I've been working on over the past weeks. And I can scroll through that, and I can search for a specific thing that I was working on. In this case, it was a kitchen remodel. And I open up that PowerPoint project, and it picks up exactly where I left off. Now, I start that project on my Windows 10 PC at home, but if I want to go to the coffee shop or something, I'm going to bring my Surface Book with me for that. And so I can go into the Surface Book, and I can use Cortana to pick up exactly where I left off on my Windows 10 PC. It pulls up that PowerPoint project, and I'm exactly where I was when I left off on my main desktop PC. Now, it's not just about PowerPoint. I could be reading, in this case, for example, MSN News. So I'm reading a news story there. I go over to the iPhone, and I can pull up that same news story on the iPhone, and it knows exactly where I was through the Cortana app on the iPhone. All right. So that's a very cool way of showing how we can have cross-device interaction and state across all of our different devices, starting from a Windows PC, going all the way over to my device like the iPhone. Now, one other thing that's very interesting here is the cloud-powered clipboard. How many of you have ever emailed yourself a document just to have it on a different device? Yeah, basically everybody, right? And those who didn't raise your hand, I'm not believing it. Everybody has done this. So starting again at my PC here, I can go into PowerPoint, because I love PowerPoint. I can copy some text over here. And then using the power of the cloud-powered clipboard, I can go over to an Android device, and I can paste that in. And it's directly integrated with the keyboard on Android. I can paste that text in I copied from my PC, and I can use that to search directly on that device. That's very cool stuff. And that's what the power of the Microsoft Graph is, being able to have more user-centric interactions across all the devices as opposed to having something that's very device-centric. And just finally here, what I'd like to say is in Windows, we love all of your devices. We're not just about Windows 10. We're not just about Windows devices. We understand that even though I have in my pocket here a Windows phone, a few of you may have a device that is something else. And we want to make sure that we provide the best possible experience across all of those devices, regardless of who you are or where those devices are. And to talk more about that and what we're doing specifically on the cloud side, I'd like to invite up Neil and Richard.
Hey, good morning. So thanks, Pete. So I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes going through some of our services-based announcements we had at Build. On stage with me is also Richard. We work in an organization called Engineering Engagement, where we work with key ISVs and help them adopt emerging technologies on our platforms. So taking the story where Pete left off around the graph, it's great that Windows 10 is going to combine that very user-centric view of how you interact with your PCs and devices in your daily life. One of the things that we've been doing at Microsoft over the last 2 years is investing heavily in this Microsoft Graph. And effectively, the Microsoft Graph is this single endpoint that allows you to get access with the right security credentials to many different sets of information. So this can be your whole life with inside Office 365. It can be Skype for Business. It can be Dynamics for your line of business applications, and also things like Microsoft Teams. So what I'll do to start with is actually do a demonstration of a company that we've been working with called Tact. They are based in the CRM space, and they've been using the Microsoft Graph to really build these rich interactions between the different information types that they need to give a great experience to their customers.
Thanks, Neil. So I'm here inside of Microsoft Teams, inside of an actual team that works on an account. And one of the cool things, Tact is a virtual assistant bot. And it's very intelligent. It's using the Bing Knowledge Graph to actually get alerts about this account. So if I zoom in here, you can see it actually gave me an alert that says, hey, it looks like there's a new executive at this organization. But because Tact is so connected with all of my different services, you can see down here at the bottom, I have a few different options that I could do. I could look for this new executive on LinkedIn, or I could search Office 365 and see if we've ever maybe done business with her before. So that's what I'm going to do is go ahead and search Office 365. And that allows me to look at all of the content that I have inside of my productivity tools. So if I zoom in here, we have worked with Julia Spears. In fact, we found 10 references to her across things like chats and files, notes, and meetings. And on top of that, we're pulling in some really cool things like the text analytics service to perform sentiment analysis on this. Now think about this. We found some old references to her. We also said, look, it looks like it was pretty positive, 84% positive. That's a pretty good lead, I think. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and maybe try to get connected with her on LinkedIn. So this is actually calling into the LinkedIn APIs. It's going to find me a few different matches on a Julia Spears. I think it's this very first one, so I'm going to go ahead and connect with that individual. And again, I didn't have to go to LinkedIn to do that. It's all integrated into this experience. In addition to communicating with LinkedIn, this bot automatically created a lead for me inside of Dynamics. You can see it here. In fact, I can go and view all of the lead details. I don't even have to leave Teams. They've integrated a custom tab here that aggregates all of that information that Tact does. So all the alerts and leads and opportunities are all within this experience. Finally, I want to maybe follow up on this. So I have a team that we work on these different deals with this account, and I want to maybe pull together a group and do a follow-up meeting with this executive. And so you can see here, I have a few different choices. I can go with the entire team, my direct reports, but I'm going to go with top collaborators, which is using intelligence out of the graph to determine who actually collaborates the most on this account. So I'll click on top collaborators. What it's actually doing is reaching in and finding meeting availability. So it's using intelligence to say, hey, what sort of availability do people have on their calendars? And the interesting thing is I'm actually pretty busy. If you look at my calendar here, it's a pretty busy calendar. But the cool thing is the graph makes it so easy to find those openings. So I'll go ahead and say schedule it here. And it takes just a second, but what we should see, bang, there it popped up on the screen. It created that follow-up lead. So pretty cool stuff, and it looks, a lot of people see this and it blows their mind all the different things that's going on. But what's cool is it's very easy to develop. If I were to go out here to Visual Studio Code, if you can perform an HTTP request, that's really all you need to do. So here's my call out to the graph to get conversations. Now, the graph is secured by tokens, so I'm actually going out to Azure Active Directory and getting a token. It's sensitive information. We want to make sure it's secure. But what I get back is JSON data. You can see here's the JSON data that I'm parsing. And then I can take that and call the sentiment analysis service. That's one of our cognitive services. Again, a simple HTTP request. And again, I get JSON data back, which has a sentiment score that I can aggregate together and give me that cool sentiment score.
Cool. Hey, thanks a lot. So obviously Azure is the Microsoft cloud. A and I want to spend some time going through some of the key areas that we announced at Build. I think one of the biggest changes we've made is obviously from an innovation perspective, we need to continue to innovate and add new capabilities. But one of the things we realize is, if we just add all these new features and it becomes really hard for you as developers to actually use them, it's not a great platform. So we spent a lot of time making sure that all that innovation we build is really easy to harness and use with the applications that you build. Secondly, from a trust perspective, we believe that trust and the security of your information in the cloud is paramount to you. We need to make sure we continue to work on that as an organization. And if we combine those together, we can allow you to really drive fantastic results. From a data center perspective, this map keeps on growing every month and every year. Right now, we have 34 data centers and Azure regions live. We have a further 6 announced within the world. This means that as your business grows and you want to place the information and the applications where your users are, it becomes really easy within Azure to do that. From a trust perspective, this is a view of how the number of certifications that we had at the beginning of the year. That was just over 50. There's also a number of sovereign clouds that we have as well within Azure. One thing that's very interesting, I don't know if you saw the announcement on Tuesday of this week, but the Australian Signals Directorate certified 40 Azure services and also 10 Office 365 services. So now these are now formally certified as unclassified. And basically that means it becomes really, really easy for you as developers to deploy your applications and your data in the Azure cloud and be certified for these federal and also state government applications. So I think it's really important, and it shows that the investments we're making as a company around trust and certification. So with that, I want to just show a quick video of a company that's local here called DoseMe.
With not only Microsoft Azure, but also Office 365 certified for unclassified data, it means that we can with confidence deploy DoseMe using these services into federal, state and local government. Microsoft Azure gives us this certainty and certification now that we're storing patient data in a place that's appropriate for it and gives our customers the assurance that we are doing everything we can to ensure that their very important private data is kept safe.
Cool. So that's a great example. We have other great customers here from Australia who are doing and using the cloud in similar ways around local and state government. So we'll share some more of those stories during the day. So one of the things the local team did, and this is more a bit of an eye chart, is think about what kind of application you might want to build. Lots of code here, but you can imagine these are the number of services that we have within Azure and within Office 365 that you can now use as part of this new certification. So with that, I want to do a second demo that Rich is going to do. And rather than do some new whiz-bang, we thought we'd show you how you can take all this new cool innovation we have in Azure, but actually harness that through great management and great tooling. Richard.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, so what I'm going to try to demonstrate is how Azure is delivering innovation that's customized for your needs, delivering results, and all within a trusted cloud. And the way we do that is through our management stack and developer tools that really help drive success for you. I'm going to actually start this demo just in the Azure portal. And this, more than ever, is really becoming the one-stop shop for you to manage and monitor your applications and really the entire breadth of Azure. So I think everyone's familiar with the Azure portal. One of the things we've done from a customization standpoint is allow you to customize this. You could always pin different things to the dashboard. But that gets kind of busy as you start provisioning more and more things inside of Azure. So what we're doing now is allowing you to go and create your own dashboards. So I can take a special slice out of my different Azure resources. In this case, what I've done is I've created an actual dashboard for my visitors application that really aggregates all the things for that application, all of the many resources that it is put together for this. I can get some statistics around my DTUs of my databases, some CPU usage. I even have an application map that's built off of application insights. So really cool experience in here, customized the way you want it. But one of the things we found, and you saw Pete show our investments in Bash and having that experience on Windows, and I could do that right now if I wanted to go manage some of my Azure resources with like the Azure command line integration. But why would I want to go and do that and have to sign in again when I'm already signed into this portal? So one of the really cool things that we've done is integrated the Bash shell directly into the Azure portal. So I'll go ahead and zoom in here just to show you. I mean, there's no smoke and mirrors here. This is a real Bash shell. I'll just do a couple of commands here. Try to do a couple of commands. So I'll just do an ls, and that just shows me some of the things that are in this directory. I could do a uname/version, and what we can see is it is Ubuntu that's running here behind the scenes. Just to do a few more things, we do have the Azure CLI integrated into this, and I'm already signed into it. I don't have to go and log in because it's all directly here in the portal. So if I wanted to do maybe, we'll pick VMs. I'll just do a z VM list and see all the VMs that I have for this subscription. Now, in this case, what I'm going to get back is a big block of JSON. That's a little bit hard to, I think, digest here inside of this shell. So instead, maybe I'll do the exact same thing, but I'll output it as a table. Now, I just have one VM, but imagine I had a big list of VMs. Again, just kind of to the spirit of Bash, I could do something like pipe and do a grep of Europe. And you could see that it helped kind of find that exact match. So I can do some filtering directly in line there. Well, this is great and all. I think you're seeing that we're really making this the one-stop shop and a great experience. But I wonder, how many people have been this guy? You're like, you don't have your PC available, or it's not cool to go pull out your laptop in the middle of a pub. It also can probably hurt your marriage if your spouse is, seeing you pull out a laptop in the middle of work. And so we want you to be cool in the pubs. And so what we're going to do is actually provide an experience, an actual Azure application where you can manage all the same things. I can go in here if I wanted to filter, by all of my different resources. I could go and look by resource group. Everything is in here, but we also have that shell directly integrated. So I can do, again, all the same things that you saw me do inside of the actual portal, I can do here on the mobile device. Now, coming back to the portal, one of the things that I noticed was my application map has quite a bit of failures. This isn't looking too healthy right now. And so I want to drill into that in a little bit more detail. So when I drill into that application map, you can see some of the exceptions that I'm getting. I have some 500s, kind of concerning, but index out of range, that should be avoidable through code. And so I'm going to click on this, and what we're going to give you is the full stack trace of what happened here. Not only that, but someone's got to fix this, so I could maybe add a new work item directly here inside of Visual Studio Online so that someone can work on it. But one of the great new things we have is the ability to open up a debug snapshot. So you can see here I have this debug snapshot, and that'll give me more detail, but I can download this, and now I can debug what happened disconnected from this production application. I don't have to impact production or deploy it somewhere else and try to do remote debugging. I can simply come to Visual Studio and just do a debug managed only here with that debug file, and you could see it stops directly on where I had the issue. And you can clearly see I didn't check for the number of items in my parts array. I just have one, and I'm expecting 2 items. So really simple for me to fix here with just a simple condition. So I've talked about customization and delivering results, being able to solve these issues. The last thing I just really quickly want to point out is what we're doing about that trusted cloud. So if I were to go to the security center within this Azure portal, I can see a number of different things. I could go click on the recommendations. It'll tell me the types of things that I should consider for some of my applications. So things like maybe a next-gen firewall or just-in-time networking or disk encryption. It gives me all of those recommendations here. Those are kind of recommendations. I can also see what might actually be happening. So if I were to go and click on looks like there's 23 alerts on this VM. If I click on this one VM, what we can see is, well, here's a successful RDP brute force attack. I mean, that's as a developer, I love that Azure just automatically provides this level of trust and really transparency to what's going on in the cloud.
Cool. Hey, thanks a lot, Richard. That's awesome. So with Azure, obviously, you can use virtual machines, storage, networking to build applications. But we've also been building a number of highly engineered, highly cohesive set of PaaS capabilities to make it much easier for you, to run your applications far quicker. And that's what I want to go through today. So I want to start with data. Data is kind of the essential part of every application. And we made a number of announcements at Build. First thing is SQL Server 2017. So this shipped kind of two and a half months ago. The first, on-premises database that shipped both for Windows, for Linux, and also in a container as well for something like Docker. We built enhanced query optimization into the tool, making the fastest database there is on-premise on the planet. But we also added a number of machine learning capabilities. So if you've got a machine that's got very large amounts of memory, we make it really easy for you to aggregate that information and then use R scripts and Python scripts right inside the engine to actually build far more intelligent applications. We also have Azure SQL Database. This is very much a hybrid version of the database in the cloud. Uses exactly the same APIs and queries, but it's completely managed by ourselves. We patch it, we manage it, and obviously within 60 seconds or less, you can create a database and have it running and operating in Azure. One of the things that you were all asking for was, how can I take my data from my on-premises systems in my SQL stores and place it in the cloud? And so one of the things we announced at Build was something called the Azure Data Migration Service. This allows you to build a pipeline approach to connect and take information from your databases and then place that into the cloud, with providing you with pretty much zero downtime for your applications. And interesting to note, this is obviously very valuable for SQL Server, but also for non-SQL Server databases as well. We also support that. So if it's an Oracle database, that's also works perfectly well. As developers, we realize that not every developer uses SQL Server. Some want to use Postgres, some want to use MySQL. Again, another big request that you'd made of us as developers is, I would love to have a fully managed and operated version of Postgres and MySQL in Azure. And so we announced that, and that's available today in the cloud. Fully highly available and secure. Again, in less than 60 seconds, you can have one of these things created and up and running. One of the unique things we have in our platform is you can elastically scale up and scale down without affecting your application. So your application doesn't have to go offline. And obviously, it's 100% compatible with all the device drivers and APIs that you use today. So again, really cool, and bringing those services you need as developers to the cloud. One of the things Richard was showing was the CLI right inside the Azure portal. We also have full access to that for your databases as well. In this case, we've got a Postgres command to restore a database, followed by a pSQL command. And so it works just like any other request with inside CLI. So making it very, very easy for you as developers to manage and debug your applications. Final thing around data was this thing called Cosmos. This is the first globally distributed and multi-model database system. What does that mean? That means from a data model, you decide how you want to store the information. It could be key value pairs, documents, even graph information. So you want to build your own graph. And then once it's stored in the system, And once it's been indexed, we allow you to use basically the API of choice for your application to get access to that information. So it can be DocumentDB, MongoDB if you want. We also support this thing called the Gremlin Graph API, which is an open source library. We even support Spark, and we're also building a number of other APIs to this platform. So it makes it really easy for you to basically get access to the information based on the APIs that you as developers want to use. Final thing is scale at a global level. So you can have this in one region, let's say in Australia, but then as you want to grow and expand to other areas, you simply go to the portal, select a new region, Cosmos DB will move the data to the new region, replicate it, and then it's fully accessible in that location for high performance. And finally, one of the unique things we've done from an Azure perspective is basically create SLAs across 4 dimensions. So everybody has high availability. That's the kind of the given right now in the industry. But what we've also done is added performance latency, throughput, and also data consistency into the platform. And actually, we provide a tool, literally within inside the Azure portal, so you can check on how we're doing with that SLA. So compute is also interesting, and lots of ways to do compute. You can build a VM. But there are 2 things that are really changing in the industry from a cloud perspective, and they're almost becoming cloud first. First one is containers, second one is serverless. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we've got more sessions later today. But around containers, we announced Service Fabric has the ability to not only allow you to build microservices architectures, but also allows you to orchestrate Docker containers, and we'll go into a lot more detail later. We also allow that same technology to allow you to run web applications or do high-scale batch. But also from a unique perspective in Azure, we have something called the Azure Container Service, which allows you to quickly spin up Kubernetes or DCOS or even a Docker Swarm instances of container management to allow you to manage your applications over multiple data centers and potentially over multiple clouds. From a tooling perspective, one of the big requests we have is, I'm going to show this later, for Visual Studio, we have inbuilt integration for Docker. It means that you can build your applications locally, you can debug them locally inside Docker containers, and we'll show that later, and then also fully integrate that into your end-to-end DevOps support. From a serverless perspective, we have a number of unique things. Obviously, serverless means event happens, it's either a HTTP request or some kind of time or some data appears in a certain file. We then need to do something. We need to run either a script, some .NET code, some Java code, some JavaScript code. Everybody does that. We also have hundreds more ways where you can actually integrate to application data to allow that application to be executed. So from a capability perspective, we have Azure Functions. This allows you to do this on-demand serverless code. Again, we'll have a full session later today on this. One thing that's interesting here is in Visual Studio, it allows you to actually build those serverless functions locally, and then once you're happy, deploy them to the cloud and even use CI/CD. We also have Azure Logic Apps, which allows you to combine those into long-running transactions that can span over a period of time and make sure that they get executed. Again, all fully integrated into Visual Studio. Azure Stack. So not everything can be in the cloud. There are sometimes regulations. One, you may need to have all the compute power near your system. 2, there may be reasons why that data cannot be in the cloud. And 3, there may be reasons why you need to split your model. With Azure Stack, what it allows you to do is build that solution once using the cloud model and then decide how you want to deploy that. One good example of a customer we're working with is Carnival Cruises. They use Azure. All their fleet management gets stored in the cloud, and they can do analysis on how the ships are doing. But obviously, once they leave port, communications becomes very expensive or non-existent. And so they use Azure Stack both within all the ships to actually manage those systems. And again, they use the same logic, the same cloud principles, but have two different deployment models based on the applications that they want to use. Final area is AI. So AI is effectively big compute, lots and lots of data, and some really powerful algorithms. From a Microsoft perspective, obviously we have the cloud, we have the graph, and we have a whole bunch of cool innovation that we've been building over the last 2 or 3 years. One of the things that's really important for you as developers is making that technology approachable. And again, we've got sessions on this later today, in fact, straight after this. 2 years ago, we announced something called cognitive services. And this is really harnessing those APIs through some simple REST endpoints across a number of areas: vision, language, speech, search, and knowledge. And the feedback we got from you as developers is you wanted that to be a little bit more custom. And so we've got now, and one of the big things we announced at Build, with this concept of these custom language, custom speech, and also custom vision services, where you can actually use your own images, you can build your own categorizations of the things that you want to make your applications really personal and build IP for your applications themselves. And then finally, from an AI platform, we allow you to completely roll your own. We have all the data, Azure Data Lake for storing infinite amounts of data, obviously Cosmos we talked about, and many other data sources. We also announced this concept of this batch AI training service, which allows you to quickly take access and gain access to information, and then call through either CPU, GPU, and then soon with FPGA, allow you to actually call those algorithms to do effective scoring of your data. So with that, I'd like to welcome Pete back on stage again to conclude. So thanks a lot. We'll speak to you later.
Thanks. Cool, thank you, Neil. So that was some really cool stuff that we saw there. We started from the Microsoft Graph and went all the way through to some of the cool things that we're doing with AI. And again, pay attention the rest of the day. There's some really great AI content coming as part of that. So one of the things I would like to talk to you about now is the new Fluent design system that we've got coming from Microsoft. And rather than just sit here and kind of explain to you what is ultimately a design system, I think it'd be better just to show a quick video. Great. You're going to see a lot more of the applications in the releases of Windows going forward here incorporate elements of the Fluent design system. If you're a Windows insider today, you're already starting to see some of those things come through in relatively simple applications like the Windows Store, as well as like Calculator and other stuff. You'll see some of the acrylic features and whatnot that we have in there. Now, one of the key drivers behind the Fluent design system is the emergence of kind of mixed reality and a very large scale. So this is something that in Windows we're betting pretty heavily on. We see this as one of the futures of application development and something that you as UWP developers and desktop developers are going to be able to take advantage of going forward. Now, you might think it's actually quite difficult or costly to get started in building applications for mixed reality, but what I'd like to do here is bring up Jaime to talk about how easy it is to get started. So, Jaime?
Well, good morning, everybody. Well, let me just get this up and running.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, you're on there. So 3. There we go.
Projecting. Perfect. So as you said, I'm Jaime, and we're going to spend the next probably 8 minutes or so building one universal Windows app that's going to span across augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality. And you're going to see how easy it is to do this. So right here, you can see I'm in Unity. Unity is a very popular game engine. It's also used a lot for augmented and virtual reality applications. So we're going to use that. And I have a pretty empty project. All I have is a reference to the Vuforia Vision library. That's a library that we use for image recognition and object recognition. So we're going to start our story here, but we need a character. And to find our character, I need a 3D object. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into Paint 3D. This is the new version of Paint that shipped with Creators Update. And it also supports, now it supports 3D. So I have 0 design skills. So what I'm going to do is go find an asset from the Remix community, which is where people in Paint, using Paint 3D can publish their assets, sell them, give them away. So let's go find an asset right here. So I'm going to go here. And let's search. We're going to explore our universe of mixed reality. So I'm going to pick an alien as my character today. I think this guy will do fine. So I'm just going to click there, and that automatically downloaded from Remix 3D from the website onto our Paint 3D right here. And I'm just going to resize him a little bit and move him around. You can see this is real 3D. Let me just zoom in a little more. Because, for example, I can rotate him. You can see here he's got a little tail that he's going to wiggle later. So we have our alien, and this is perfect for our 3D character that we're going to use. What I'm going to do here is from within Paint 3D, I'm just going to export it. So I go here and say export as an FBX. And this is already set up to export to a specific folder that Unity is looking at. You see there's already one that I pre-created just in case anything went wrong, but let's export this one. And I'm going to save. And I'm going to go back into Unity, and you'll see a couple of things. Unity will automatically detect our alien right there, and it automatically import. This sometimes takes a few seconds, so I'm going to use the other one. Or actually, let's use this one. Let's leave on the edge. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm just going to drag him right here to our scene. You can see him right there. So let's just move him around a little bit. He's looking the wrong way. So let's just flip him around, and that's good enough for us. So now we have our character, and we're ready to export augmented reality. So I'm going to show you how to build a universal app from within Unity, and I'm going to show you these ones, but we will repeat the same process for virtual reality or for mixed reality. So I'm just going to go here, go into Build Settings, and then I'll just say select the platform is Windows Store, because we have one platform that targets all of the realities that we're going to cover. And then I said SDK is universal, which is the latest SDK. And this, in this case, is a SAML app. And everything else, I leave the default. So here, I can just say build. And what it does is it creates a Visual Studio project. Everybody here, hope, is familiar with Visual Studio. So this is going to create a Visual Studio project. It takes a couple minutes, so I'm going to use the pre-canned one that I have right here. This is exactly what it would have generated. It's just one project that has a reference to the Unity runtime and some of the assets that we created. In this case, I added a few lines of code just to make the demo more interactive. I added speech recognition, and we're just going to give the alien a couple commands like jumping and stopping. So super trivial. Now I can come here and build from within Visual Studio and then show you the augmented reality version of the app. So here, I'm going to unplug. Yep. Perfect. Good. Swap me.
There you go.
So here you see we have this spaceship right there, and there's our alien. Look, if I go out here, Vuforia detects our spaceship, and it automatically shows our alien. And you can see him is the real 3D alien. This is a Surface Pro. There's nothing special about this camera. This is a standard, PC camera. And you can see the tracking is great. And we have our alien right there in the table. Now, that's augmented reality right there. Now, augmented reality is cool, but we have something cooler, right? With the HoloLens, we can do mixed reality. So what I've done here is yesterday I pre-recorded the demo because I want to show you what I see in the HoloLens, and I would have to stream it over Wi-Fi, and I thought the Wi-Fi might not work with 500 phones here. So I'm just going to show you what I recorded yesterday, and you'll see exactly what I would be seeing on the HoloLens if I was running the demo. So let me put this on. Can you kick us off? So you see right here is the exact same map. You see the same Unity logo. And right here, all I did is we swapped the Vuforia camera that we had earlier with a HoloLens camera. And now we have our aliens right here, and he's a hologram right here. But because we're in HoloLens, we can do a lot more. For example, we can analyze our environment and start looking at the walls and the floors. Let me just give you the command. That seems to not have sound. Because there I should have given a special mapping command, and you can see that it's right now scanning the floors and the walls. So you see these meshes that are appearing. Is the HoloLens actually the depth sensors here are detecting those meshes. Now we have sound, sorry. Show mesh. So it's hiding and showing the meshes. And now because we have those meshes, now we can interact with the environment. For example, I can have the alien, which is a virtual object, interact with this floor right here. See right there? He fell down on the floor and he stopped. It's that spatial mapping from HoloLens that's actually doing the stopping him. He can still jump. Jump. Stop. So, and just to show you right here that it's HoloLens doing the mapping, I'm going to remove the mapping, and then you'll see what happens. Pay attention, because it's fast. Stop mapping. See? He fell through to a different dimension. That is mixed reality right there. Virtual and physical in one place. Yep. So we got two.
So that was two, right? So we saw augmented reality using just a PC and a webcam. We saw mixed reality here using the HoloLens. But what about cool devices like this one?
Yep.
Right?
So this is one of our Acer dev kits. I need to switch camera speed.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So let's switch to 3. Oh, let me switch again. Good thing this has a long cord on it. All right.
Cool.
There we go.
So this is one of our new Acer dev kits, and this is virtual reality. It actually has the same tracking technology, our in-out tracking technology that we use for HoloLens, but he's occluded right here, so you can see right now he's still scanning the environment. But let's show you what an app would look like. In this case, what I've done is in this project right here, let me just go here, I just have the exact same alien, but I added a background, so we have a skybox, because he's in a virtual environment, so we just need to make sure you had something cool to look at. So in this case, you can see I'm going to run it right here from within the shell. So to show you, this is a standard Universal Windows app. And I'm just going to run the app, and you're going to see whatever he's seeing in his app.
Cool, I see an alien.
So you can see the alien now, he's in virtual environment. Now, again, I told you there's in-depth in-out tracking here from the HoloLens. So Pete, why don't you take a couple steps back?
Whoa.
See, now he's in a virtual ship. Show them the floor, show them the background.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is virtual reality. With augmented reality, we brought the alien down to our table. With mixed reality, we had our alien interact with the floor. And with virtual reality, we took Pete to space. Very cool. In one app. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thanks, Jaime. I'd really like to just keep wearing this and playing around with it for a while. It's so much fun. All right, let's switch back over to slides here. There we go. So cool. So you've seen the 3 different types of augmented reality, mixed reality here, all the way from augmented to virtual. And understand that at Microsoft, we look at it as one continuous spectrum of technology. So the things that you start with by building augmented reality just with your laptop and a camera can scale all the way up to something like HoloLens or to Windows mixed reality occluded devices like the Acer headset that I was showing you there. And then we also have other interesting devices coming, such as the hand controllers that you see here that'll be available your time somewhere around this spring. Okay? So we talked about a bunch of different things here today, and there are a few things that I would like you to take away from this. So first of all, modernize your applications with UWP. And you'll learn more about that later today, where you can take your existing desktop applications and add UWP components to it, or you can build new UWP applications just straight up. But we want you to start thinking about Windows mixed reality, the new design language that includes features such as acrylic, and also just the new features that you can use to light up on Windows 10 using the graph, using the Roam APIs. If you're a .NET developer, please go and contribute to .NET and XAML standard. We are developing this in the open. This is something that we want you all to participate in and to have a voice in. So if you are a desktop developer or a XAML developer or somebody who has any interest in any of these technologies, now is the time to go and contribute and get your voice heard. Next, bring your apps to the Windows Store. I mentioned several applications that have been super successful in the Windows Store, including some that are built directly in Australia. The opportunity is still there for you to build these applications and make them available not just for mobile devices, but for desktop devices, for Xbox, for Windows mixed reality in the future. Then, of course, if you want to build stuff with Azure, please go get an Azure subscription. It's going to unlock all the different things that Neil talked about and Richard talked about today, so you can go in and experiment with all these different features in your applications. And there's lots of intelligence in the cloud there, and it's growing on a day-by-day basis. And finally, try out Microsoft Cognitive Services. This is something that we have been adding to continuously, and there's so much that you can do in the cloud that you can't do on a client device alone. And so it's harnessing the power of those cognitive services in your application can really give you that next level of features and capabilities. Now, we have a lot going on here today, and so this is a single track, so it's awesome you guys will be able to be here for all of this. We're going to start with Azure AI and Azure Containers coming up right after this. Then we'll have a short break, following that up by talk about how to use your HTML and JavaScript skills to build progressive web apps, and then talking about .NET and Xamarin in more detail than what we did here today. Then at lunchtime, there is, of course, lunch, because that's important, but there's also a diversity panel that I want you to check out, which will be right out here. So you'll be able to talk about some of the things that are required to understand what is meant by diversity and how to improve diversity in your own organizations. Then after lunch, so make sure you're back here right after lunch, we have a really fun game that we're going to play, and we have some cool prizes and swag that we're going to give out as part of that game. After that, we'll do Azure Serverless, so we'll go into more detail into some of the things that were talked about this morning. And then we're going to talk about how to modernize your applications using UWP, as well as how to use the Windows Desktop Bridge. Then there's a tea break afternoon. And then finally, the last thing of the day, which always tends to be the most popular part of the build tour, is we have a full Q&A where all of us from Corp, as well as some of the folks from your local teams, will be up on stage, and you can ask us basically anything. And we have a really cool mic that's not just a pass-around mic, it's actually a throw-around mic, so there might be some slight injuries in the audience, but that just adds to the fun, I think, of the Q&A. If you haven't signed up for the Day 2 workshop, that's tomorrow, please go ahead and do so. It is a really great workshop where we have hands-on labs that you can walk through step by step to learn about the technologies that we're talking about as part of the build tour and to get real experience with using those technologies. Okay? And we're going to talk about all that stuff there tomorrow as well as expand upon that today. And so that's the link. It's workshop SYD at aka.ms. So with that, I would like to say thank you. And I still have room. It's Twitter here, but that might be kind of funny. Thank you again here on this. If you have any of the information that we talked about today, if you're interested in more, please go to aka.ms/buildtour. And if you're tweeting about anything, please use the MS Build Tour hashtag. And with that, thank you very much.